Sure. I have implicit faith in all of you. Okay. Was the first part recorded? Or? No. Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay, great. This is the first night of what I imagine will be close to, if not longer than, a year-long series where we will be going through all of what I would consider to be, any of you can consider to be, because I'll ask for input as the course goes on, essentials on the spiritual path. And if you just think about it even a little bit, I mean, if you think about attunement, devotion, loyalty, you could just go on and on. There's really probably literally an unending list. So this may be like one of those infinity pools where we just keep going and going. But we'll see. Hopefully it'll be fun if we do it. The idea came to me well over a year ago when I stood up at SRW to give a talk and realized that I had a talk about 6 of the essentials on the spiritual path, and I covered one. And very much to my embarrassment, I never even mentioned attunement. It was a talk about essentials, and I had to sit down. My 20 minutes was up. So from that came a 3-week course, and then in Portland last year, a 7-day course, and now here we are. I finally got that I should say at least a year. And we'll just go on and on as long as there are interesting things to talk about. What we'll see as we go is that it is very much like how we speak about Raja Yoga. No matter how many times you read that Raja Yoga book or sit in on the course, every time you will hear something new. You will swear that it was not in the book before, because the depth and breadth of the spiritual path offers that to us. It says, I will speak to you wherever you are in this moment. And then next week, I will speak to you wherever you are. Same word sometimes, same topic, but we have better ears to hear as we go. So somebody could be listening to us. We won't actually get into a topic tonight, but in 2 weeks we'll start with right attitude, and somebody could have heard that talked about many times, but I'm certain that if we're paying close attention, you will hear things about right attitude that it never came to you before. You never read it, heard about it, intuited it, because of course, moment by moment, we're growing and deepening. I am getting most of the substance for these talks through, I would say through inspiration, because it's not written down, but from Paramahansa Yogananda's preceptor lessons, and through Swami Kriyananda's notes on those lessons, discipleship notes. All of the substance will come straight from Swamiji or Master. So I hope that we'll all find this whole series to be profound and hopefully fun. I mean, many things, but that we'll be able to go very deep with it. And each week walk out saying to ourselves, wow, I never thought of that, or I never realized that, or that something will shift in our lives because of it. It's what's happened to me, even as I was preparing for tonight, and I'll share that with you in just a little bit. So, as you all know, we have offered these classes for free every other Friday night. We wrote that there is a suggested donation of $10 per class, but we would never want anybody to miss even one class because of money. You all know that. We here at Ananda offer much of what we do for free. So same with these classes. Don't feel obligated, but if the inspiration strikes, there is a button where you signed on for the class. You can go to Ananda paloalto.org/donate and make a donation. If you feel to, there will always be a donation box in the room. So again, they are free classes, but donations are always welcome. So having said just that little bit of an introduction, we'll start this evening the way we'll start every evening, with a prayer, a chant, a very brief meditation, and then each week something from Swamiji or Master or one of the other great teachers that we have. Tonight we'll watch bits and pieces of a wonderful video of Swami Kriyananda speaking. So let's begin with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, friend and guide, Swami Kriyananda, we humbly bow before you all. Divine Mother, great masters, be with us tonight, throughout this series, throughout our lives, helping us to dive deep and to find inspiration in all of your words, in all of your love for us, in all of the ways that you are here to guide us. We are filled with gratitude for your presence in our lives. And we are longing to be closer to thee. Help us through the medium of these classes to find our way home. Om, peace, amen.
Today my mind has died.
Let's meditate together now for just a few minutes, but taking the words and the inspiration in this chant that says, whatever is missing in this life, in my spiritual search, I can in fact improve upon by diving deeper with greater concentration, with greater focus, greater awareness. So let's spend just a few minutes together now. Om, peace. Amen.
Pita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhu cha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. I bow to the Lord in all his forms. I bow to him in you. You know, there's an aspect of the path, as I've been saying, which demands a certain sternness. But you know, it isn't a harsh kind of sternness. It's a one-pointedness. That's the difference. There's a story which I have read already, I believe, about a young boy who was brought to my Guru's ashram by his mother, but he was not in tune with the idea of being a disciple. And because the mother had placed this child in my Guru's hands, my Guru tried to discipline him, but the boy, every time my Guru said anything, he would say, "Mommy, he's scolding me." He didn't like to be scolded. He didn't like to be helped, was what it really amounted to. Finally, my Guru gave him a toy airplane, and oh, that was everything he wanted. He became an airplane engineer and achieved whatever happiness his karma made possible for him. But most people, they think that when God disciplines us, Guru disciplines us, life disciplines us, they think, oh, it's harsh. And so they go bumping along through life, just up and down, always suffering, and a little bit of happiness, a little bit of pain, a little bit more happiness, a little bit of pain. It's sort of, it's a very uneven road for such people. And when, as I was saying yesterday, a person understands the need to just, whatever God gives is for our I said this a week ago, whatever God gives us is for our good. When we accept that, actually something comes into the picture that's very different. Life becomes full of joy. It becomes a dance with God. It's not as if the saints were heaving heavy sighs as to, oh man, it's difficult. It's not like that at all. You never find anybody who has found God, who says, what a disappointment. They all say this is what life is all about. And when you're in that, life becomes a constant dance of joy. So, when you really embrace this attitude, then you do it joyfully. There isn't this thought that, oh yes, I've got to do it, but what a heavy burden. God, must you punish me so? God's not trying to punish you, but the Shiva aspect of God is trying to clear away the dead wood. You know, actually that fire was a great blessing in many ways. It helped to purify the community, first of all. It helped to get rid of those who were lukewarm, as opposed to those who knew they had just come for God. It helped those who had come for God to understand that's what it's all about. It isn't a nice home in the country. We didn't come, we don't create communities to create a perfect place in this world. You can't create perfection in this world. It's not a perfectible place. It's a school. When you have a school, you're not trying to perfect the school, you're trying to perfect the students. And so, this world is not meant to be. We should try to leave it better than we left it, but we should not expect that we can ever find a place, even in the most beautiful galaxy, the most beautiful planet in that galaxy, the most wonderful garden, everything could be perfect. You know the wrong thing with it? Egos. And as long as you've got a physical body, you've got an ego. And as long as you've got an ego, you've got suffering, you've got limitation, you've got imprisonment in a sense. But if you can exalt that ego by understanding that your happiness doesn't depend on a bunch of beautiful flowers, like here, you know, I created a heaven on this earth. Our community in America, this is where I live. Beautiful garden. Yes, you should try to make beauty in this world. We've tried to do it, and it helps people. But you know, nothing's ever perfect. In the most beautiful place, you will find perfection only when you can go into your own inner self. But as you do, you see, you begin to change the vibrations of the world around you. There is a woman who came to our community a few years ago. She had some way of testing the vibrations of different places. She had been to some of the most exalted cathedrals in Europe, for example, gone to all sorts of spiritual places. She was amazed when she came to this place here. She said the vibrations were much higher. The highest she had encountered, I think, but I may be wrong, were something like 26,000 a second of those vibrations. Here at Crystal Hermitage, as I called it, they were 35,000 a second. But that's because we fill it with God. We fill it with divine vibrations. This is what you need to do. It's not the place. It's the vibrations that really change people. People change. They see the beauty. They let their guard down and they say, oh, this is beautiful. But then they tune into what is making it beautiful, the vibrations behind it. And ultimately, it will never be beautiful except to the extent that the people there. We need to have beautiful people above all. And beautiful people means egoless people. It doesn't mean beautiful people in the jet set sense. It means people who don't think about themselves, people who think of God, people who think of doing His will, people who think of meditating and serving Him. Now, when you can live like that, then you find that whereas there is, yes, we must accept that. We must accept it all the way along. Because God, no matter how far you go on the spiritual path, He'll give you tests. What you need to do is remove your ego from those tests. That's what makes it beautiful. Not the outward life, which sometimes can be not so easy. But in your heart there can be dancing. In your heart there can be joy.
Father, now that I wander with Thee, flowers and fields seem alive with Thy joy. All that I own to Thee I give, and now I dance in thy name. Birds and animals share in my song. All my sorrows, all my merriment, join in music to set hearts aflame. Father, now that I wander with thee, flowers and fields seem alive with thy joy. All that I own to thee I've given, now I sing in thy love I am free. Father, now that I dance in thy name, birds and animals share in my song. All my sorrows, all my merriment, join in music to set hearts aflame. All my sorrows, all my merriment, join in music to set hearts aflame.
They look so young. Papa Jyoti just said those singers look so young. I should be careful what I say because one of them might watch it, but we know those people that don't look that way anymore. But they look joy-filled. They really do. And their smiles, I don't know, I've watched that now a couple of times, but when you see Kirtani or Nirmala smile, you really feel closer to God just being near those people. I just want to say I chose that video because I wanted us to start this series by tuning into, in a conscious way, what is our goal here? Of course, we all know it. We would all say it. We want to find God. Why else would we be here? But hearing Swamiji speak about it, hearing Swamiji say, there you find joy, there you find God, and you just feel his energy, and the words become meaningless. But those 36,000, whatever they were measuring, I don't know what he called them, but whatever they were, jolts of energy, whatever it was, the vibrational frequency, you feel it in him. That's why she's picking that up there, Crystal Hermitage, because as we tune in throughout this year to each of these essentials, as we say to ourselves, what could I learn tonight? What could I hear that I've known? If somebody said to me, do you think that perseverance is an essential in the spiritual path? We would all say, of course. But to really have ourselves show up here throughout this course as beginners, with a beginner's mind, and to say, what something new can I take away? How can I hear this with new ears? We are in the midst of rethinking our pathway to Kriya, the way we present it in classes, and the whole Raja Yoga course, the way we're going to do it. So there's a committee that's just been formed, and we've been meeting on Zoom because there are literally people from all over the world, people joining from India and Italy, and we're all talking about it together. And these are the colony leaders, not all colony leaders, but the people on the committee are mostly colony leaders, at least spiritual leaders in the communities. To the person, they said in different ways at different times, and I'm using Raja Yoga as an example because it's such an obvious example. It's the essence of the entire spiritual path. But so many of them said it. This is such a remarkable work. I've been teaching it 2 times a year, 4 times a year, for 20 years, 30 years. Every time I teach it, I see something new. Now that is a beautiful attitude for a disciple to have, to open up something and say, what can I find here that I didn't know before? How can I leave being inspired? That Swamiji was just saying, understand that whatever comes to you is a gift from God. We've all heard that many times. But to feel his joy around it and to feel him saying to us, this is the only place you will find joy. It's the only way you will find joy. Make no mistake about it. No matter how else you're trying, in how many different ways, no, you won't find it any other way. And he says, and Master says, and we read, when we're new or newish on the path, I could still say to you, I'm newish on the path. So it doesn't mean like first time you ever walk in here. It means we've been trying hard for a lot of lifetimes. We're still newish. They say, at first, God will just give you some things to read. And you'll read, and you'll be reading this. You'll go, oh my God, look at this. This is so wonderful. This is so exciting and thrilling. And you'll feel satisfied for a while. And you think that you get to read and study and that that's taking you to God. This is Master and Swamiji speaking, not me. And then they say, don't fool yourself. That's not the way. That's just the tiniest beginning. And really, where are they leading? They're all leading, of course, to that place of inner communion through meditation. So I'm saying all of this to say there's always something here for all of us, always, if we look for it. I thought I would start tonight by reading a little story that we've all heard before, but I'm going to read it in Master's words. This is Paramahansa Yogananda's words because it's so precious. You can just imagine this delightful Indian man telling this story of the big frog and the little frog. And again, I know many of us have heard it, but he says a big fat frog. I mean, he's so descriptive. I just loved reading this today. And a little baby frog fell into a milk pail. They swam and swam for hours trying to get out, but they could not due to the slippery sides of the milk pail. The big frog, all exhausted, moaned, "Brother, little frog," I'll let Lakshmi fix that for a moment. "Brother, little frog, I'm going to give up and lie down and die." And the little frog thought to himself, to give up is to be dead. That's what he's saying, so I will keep on swimming. 2 hours passed, and the tiny legs of the little frog were all tired out, and he thought he could do no more. But as he looked at the dead frog, he shook his head and repeated, "To give up is to be dead meat." That's what Master wrote. "So I will keep on paddling until I die, if death is to come, but I will not give up trying. I will not give up trying, for while there is life, there is still hope." So, intoxicated with determination, the little frog kept on paddling with his little feet. After a while, when he felt he was completely paralyzed and all was over and that he was going to drown, he suddenly felt a big lump under him. To his great joy, he saw that it was a lump of butter. I can see when I put my face down there. I won't be reading much longer. To his great joy, he saw that it was a lump of butter which he had churned by his incessant paddling. And the little froggy, beside himself with joy, leaped out of the milk pail to freedom. Now, that is just charming. And Master goes on to say, remember, he says, I want to read you his words. I don't want to paraphrase this. We are all in the slippery milk pail of life, trying to get out of our troubles and inharmonies, like the two frogs. Most people give up and fail, like the big frog. But in order to succeed, we must learn to persevere. We must learn to persevere in our effort toward one goal, as the little frog did. Then we will churn an opportunity by our God-guided, unflinching willpower, and will be able to hop out of the milk pail of failure onto the shore of eternal success. Not to give up is to develop willpower and to win in everything we undertake. Now, that's just a charming little story, but it is the essence of what we're all doing here. And Master, I just love how he talks about the little froggy feet and the lump of dead meat. It's pretty graphic, but it is, in fact, how most people live. They give up very easily. You know, this chant that Lakshmi sang tonight. It's interesting, when I was looking just through some different readings, looking for buzzwords and doing different readings, 3 times, I didn't know this, I wrote to her last night and said, can you play this chant today? Master mentioned this chant. Because these words, if I find not, I will not blame the sea. I'll find fault with my diving. This chant is saying, if we're not finding joy, if we're not finding freedom, if we don't feel that we're moving along on our spiritual path, then we ask ourselves, what am I missing here? What am I not doing? And how might I do it? There's nothing wrong in the world. There's nothing going on that shouldn't go on. I cut out pieces of this video, but Swamiji jumped in at one moment and he said that fire, of course, I knew most people here would remember that he was talking about the fire that burned down all of Ananda village, how many years ago. But he went on to say, he said it was perfect. It was like a perfect weeding. It got rid of old, dead wood. People left who were not deeply committed to finding God. And to those people who were deeply committed, it helped them realize this is what life's about. This isn't the one and only obstacle life is going to throw in my path, but look at what happens. Why have we heard the story of the fire so often? And I've said this before about Swamiji, how many times he would tell us the same story. But Jyotish, Devi, Asha, Anandi, everybody who was there, they'll tell us this story over and over. Why is it? Because they became who they became through those stories. And this all feels very relevant to me right now, because it's these simple truths that we've all heard so many times that are going to take us to God. It's not big fancy words and philosophies that we leave here and we go, gee, what did she say on Sunday? That's not important. But when you walk out with a message in your heart or in your mind, or you say, that's something I'm going to apply, or here's what I'm going to do. Simple, a simple story, right? For those of you who heard the sermon, like me talking about my puppy Max and how I'm training him to go against every instinct that he has. That is what's being asked of us. So when he wants to bark or bite my clothes or nip at my shoes so that he can get my attention because he's only this big, you might think, what else is he going to do? But no, now I know. You hold the treat right there. Max, look at me. Look here. Before he knows it, he's not barking, and he got the treat. And it's so relevant in our lives because that's exactly who we are. All of our instincts. You hear what Swamiji said? He said, what's in our way? Why aren't we joyful, happy, all of what we're looking for? He said, it's one word. It's ego. That's it. We're drawn out by the ego. That's the animalistic instinct. That's what it is. And as soon as we can learn to look here, look right here. I say it to Max 30, 40 times a day now. And every time I'm saying to myself, Shanti, look right here. It's so simple. It's the simple truths. And that's how it is. I was saying to you before that we hear so many things about these essentials. We don't even know that we're reading them. I want to read you something that at least many of you have heard many, many times. This is the affirmation for self-healing from our Sunday service on renunciation. Now, anybody who's taken discipleship, which is most of you and most of you watching, we call ourselves renunciates. We don't hold that term the way it's been held in the world. We're talking about being people who are not interested in worldly gain or worldly material assets. At least, even if we enjoy them, we do not think that that's where our happiness lies. We don't tell ourselves, if that was taken away from me, how could I live? Or I'd be miserable. We don't. That might happen to us still, but we don't tell ourselves that. We don't affirm it. We're renunciates. We're renouncing the world in that way. Now, I've read this affirmation many times, but here is the little blurb on renunciation that Swamiji wrote. He says, renunciation means turning one's back on all non-essentials. Now, this came up today in a search. Just put in essentials. Where are essentials mentioned in our readings? Well, I've been reading that how many times for how many years? That's what renunciation means. It means unless we're focused on what we're going to talk about for the rest of this class as it unfolds, unless we're focused on that, then we're not doing a good job of being a renunciate. Renunciation means turning our back on all non-essentials. What a beautiful way of defining that we may give our whole attention to the Lord. We might think of renunciation as an investment, which initially may seem a loss, right? Because we're giving up worldly things. And worldly things doesn't mean none of us should get too arrogant, because it's not simply material things. It's anything we're attached to. It's all of our desires, our attachments, our likes, our dislikes. That's what we're talking about. Those are not essential. Those are the ego. That is in the opposite direction of joy. So it's so phenomenal how Swamiji writes about it. It's so masterful, is what it is. He said it initially may seem a loss, but in time becomes multiplied to many times its original worth. Means looking towards the essentials. When you turn away from the non-essentials, might seem like a loss, but the effort, the energy, the willingness to do that, the perseverance that it takes to do it, to keep diving deeper and deeper for that perfect pearl. That's what we're diving for. For us, the perfect pearl is God's love, God's wisdom being born in each of us, reborn, right? This is what all of this chant, these words are talking about. The least gift that we give to God will return to us in divine blessings 1,000-fold. I've said that phrase always in relation to tithing. I used to write it in all of our tithing bulletins. But suddenly I realized I've been hearing it once a year for, I say 40 years, but I don't know when Swamiji wrote affirmations, but from whenever he wrote it, I've been saying it. I didn't know that. You know, it's like waking up even today, these little beautiful points that we can hold on to. You know, they become that which help us just keep moving forward on our path. Each gift that we give will be returned to us 1,000-fold. Imagine that. And it's truth. Swamiji wasn't writing a figure of speech. He wasn't trying to be poetic. He was telling us a truth. He says to us, study these affirmations every day, all week. Renunciation means nothing less than the gift to God of oneself. Now, of course, I've said about 10% of what I wanted to say, but it's okay. That's why we're going on all year. I want to have some time for discussion, but I want to share one more thing. I started listing today, gee, I should be able to say to these people, here are some of the essentials that we'll talk about. And of course, as I said before, they're the obvious ones. Right attitude, devotion is an essential, seva, service is an essential, right? Attunement is certainly an essential. Then I said to myself, think of all the times that we've heard, like, like loyalty is the first law of God. Yogananda said that. Loyalty is definitely an essential. He's saying it's the first law of God. So you think, wow, I better make loyalty number one. But then somewhere else he says, next to God's grace, the company you keep is the most important thing on the spiritual path. He's talking about satsang. So then he says, next to God's grace, the company you keep is the most important thing. Then you go, my God, does that mean satsang's number one? I've got a whole list of them here. A whole list. We'll get to them as we talk about them. Because it's like studying the yamas and the niyamas. You don't perfect one and then go on to the next one, and then get that perfected and go on to the next one. That's not how it works. When we're coming to that point of intuitive perception in the center of our heart that is God, that's where it all comes together. That's where loyalty, sadhana, satsang, seva, service, devotion, attunement, perseverance, willingness, willpower. I could just stand up here for an hour and say them. Where they're all perfected is in the divine. So for us to take one a week, or maybe one will go 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and see how deep can we go with it, let's remember that what we're doing is we're just taking ourselves further and further on the path toward the divine. Now, this ran a little late tonight because I did a fairly long introduction. We won't have to do that anymore. We'll get right to a point. But I'd still like to ask if there are any comments, questions, shouts of joy, whatever you feel to. I want this eventually to have the last 15 minutes will be either questions or comments or just so that we all feel involved. Unfortunately, because of the live stream, I'm going to need to be up here, but let's still just feel like we're together, and please feel perfectly comfortable making a comment, or I'll repeat any comments or questions if anybody has any. And if you're at home, you're on live stream, you can type a question into the chat if you've registered with live stream. If you haven't, do it before the next class. It takes a moment, and even I could do it on my own. So everybody watching will be able to do it on their own. Anybody have a comment? Yes, Eloisa. Evelyn, I'm sorry. Jeez. I just looked at her and I looked over at you. I thought she was raising her hand. I'm sorry. Evelyn, yeah.
As you were describing renunciation,
Yeah.
how do we balance that with the outward service that we do in our work, or how we move through our lives? Like, we have careers, we have responsibilities. How do we balance, renunciate in the world?
Yeah, that actually is a very good question. And it's so interesting that just this morning I had a 1-hour-long discussion, I'll repeat the question, with somebody about this very question. And they were asking me what Evelyn's asking, how do we balance renunciation with all of the outward service that we need to do and are doing, many of us, in the world? And in the world even means in the temple, in our community. It's not just you as a therapist or me as a physician or whoever is doing what. It's everywhere. Whenever we're stepping out, how do we balance it? But you know, and this is one of those times where words matter. It's not nitpicking. It's not a balance, actually. What it is bringing this attitude of renunciation, this attitude of non-attachment, nishkam karma, non-attachment to the outcome once we know that we've been doing our best. So we bring, as devotees, as disciples, everything we have to everything we do. Everything. And it doesn't matter what our job is. This is such an interesting thing about life. It's not, how can I say it? I remember when my sister was, she was very sick. She ultimately died, and some of you have heard me talk about it. But when I was sitting in the hospital with her, the last 10 days of her life, I realized that if I told those doctors that were taking care of her, this was years ago, that I was a physician from Stanford, it meant so much to them that their whole attitude towards me changed. They stopped by more often, they told me more things, they were more respectful with me, more compassionate with my sister. So I did it. I told everybody that would listen, I'm a physician from Stanford. I didn't care that I was a physician from Stanford. I was this woman's sister, heart wide open, trying to help her leave her body in the most uplifted, expansive, calm way that she could. But it mattered to them. What was important to me is that I wasn't impressed with it. I wasn't attached to it. It didn't make me a better sister. It didn't make me a better guide to help her leave her body. So how the world holds these things, even our patients at times, or our clients, or, I could just look at all of you because I know each of you and I know what you've done, and I could come up with an example that's relevant in your life because it doesn't matter what we're doing. There's no opposed to or balancing. It's bringing our awareness, our attention, our look right here as we move through the world. That we're constantly keeping our eye on the divine. That in each client, we're serving God. That in each staff person, we're serving God. It's endless, whatever we're doing. If you're painting, you're painting until we actually get to the point where we can realize God's painting through us. God's working with these patients through us. It's never even us to begin with. But, you're dealing with some tech person, how many thousands of miles away in another country. That person, that problem, everything is part of the divine. So there's not really a balance. We need to stay balanced. We need to balance doing our sadhana. We need to stay balanced by eating good food, by exercise, by taking care of ourselves. But we never leave God in the process. That's our goal. That's what the essentials are. Perfecting the essentials is renunciation. It's never taking our eye off of the essentials. So you never leave. Does that make sense to you? Does it answer your question? Yeah. It's so important for us because we are all out in the world in certain ways, every one of us. And no matter what our role is, we're constantly coming into situations where we can very easily be pulled off the path. So for this person who I was talking with this morning, I reminded them, what do you think Master meant when he said, be always calmly active and actively calm? He didn't mean when you're sitting in this beautiful temple and you're meditating and you're surrounded by gurubhais. He didn't say, during this time, do it. He said, be always calmly active and actively calm. That's an important goal. And so we just move with God by keeping our eye on the essentials. Yeah. Anybody else have a comment or a question? Yes. Just hold on for 1 minute. You have to speak right into that mic.
Hello, hello.
You have to speak loudly and hold the mic right next to your mouth.
Welcome to receive your comments on it. The first point you talked about maintaining loyalty to God. And, something which comes to my, I guess, a picture which is like essentially like a balloon. We are, let's say the string is tied, it's like a umbilical cord, we are connected with a physical world. But when we detach that umbilical cord or that string, connect that with the God's umbilical cord, God's or goddesses womb.
Yeah.
So it's like we are never born, but we are also detached.
Well, that we call Maya or delusion or an illusion. Are these questions now being? Yeah, okay, good. We actually are never detached. We can't be. I mean, in a way, it's a nice analogy, it's a nice image. If one thinks of an umbilical cord, I like the image to think, oh, God never lets us go. But you see, it's actually even deeper than that because we are that divine energy. Nothing happens. There is never any separation. But, as Swami Kriyananda said, and I don't know if you were here when he was speaking, but the ego would have us think so. It would have us think that we're separate. But we're not separate. And I'm being repetitive with this because we'll only have so much time. That's your comment is the whole of the spiritual path. So we're not going to be able to break it down tonight because the answer is we're not separate. We're not even floating separate like that. We are made manifest from that state of super consciousness, and that is really who we are. No matter how many lifetimes we forget it, truth is eternal. Truth can never die. Truth is truth. We are one with God. That we don't see it doesn't mean anything. You know, if there's a cloudy day and you don't see the sun, did the sun disappear? No, the sun's right there. So in the same way, we're not ever separate from God. But the whole of life is about finding ways to remind ourselves of that, to awaken or remember, smriti, who we really are, one with the divine, always. The umbilical cord only gets cut on the physical plane.
It's essentially we are growing, but we are growing with this the renewed umbilical cord, where we have the detachment from the physical world, but we are having the umbilical cord connected to God, which is allowing us to grow until that conception is complete.
You know, I'm going to hear that as a comment from you and not as a question and not try and keep up the discussion right now. I apologize for that. We can talk anytime, but because this class was meant to be 1 hour from 7 to 8, I want to be respectful. And it's, what you're saying is there's truth in it, and it's a little more philosophical than I care to get right now. I hope you can understand that. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Does anybody else have a question or a comment? Any questions from live stream? Nothing? Good. Okay, friends, this was an introduction. In 2 weeks, we'll start by talking about, by beginning to talk about right attitude. I'm sure that'll be 2, 3, maybe even 4 classes, because it is absolutely the core of our path. And as I'll remind you in 2 weeks, and as Master said, and Swamiji actually says in the Raja Yoga book, you can't even have a desire to step onto the spiritual path without right attitude. So that's where we'll pick it all up. But thank you. It's been wonderful sharing the evening with you.